Welcome into the Big Blue Breakdown, the Game Balls and Gassers edition of the New York Giants 21-15 road victory over the Cleveland Browns in week 3 of the regular season. I'm Paul Dottino. All right, so the Giants are now 1-2. They get their first win of the year, and they will welcome in the Dallas Cowboys in week 3 coming up at MetLife Stadium on Thursday night. But to get there and to feel good about themselves, the Giants had to first dispatch the Browns. And that's exactly what they did. So let's go over the game balls first. And to no one's surprise, how could we not give the offensive game ball to no one other than rookie first-round draft pick, wide receiver Malik Nabers? He's getting to make this a habit, isn't he? You know, I always talk about headache players, guys who give the other team's coordinators problems the previous Monday night as they stay up the entire evening trying to figure out how to deal with this guy. I think it's becoming pretty evident. Malik Nabers is quickly becoming a headache player for opposing teams' defensive coordinators. 8 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the National Football League says that he is the first rookie in history to have at least 20 receptions and 3 touchdown grabs in his first 3 professional games. Suffice it to say, he's cracking open that jar of of headache medicine. All right, let's go over the 2 touchdown catches. And oh, by the way, little honorable mention here, the quarterback Daniel Jones was terrific, very efficient, 24 for 34 for 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Yes, I know there was the very ill-advised throw from his own territory, throwing off balance, off of 1 foot. It was intercepted, but because of a helmet-to-helmet hit and a roughing the passer call, the interception was wiped off the board. Okay, I get it. I know that happened. But it didn't happen because of the penalty. Otherwise, Jones was terrific. All right, so he and Nabers communicate on this play. It's a 7-7 game, and there's just under 2 minutes left in the first half. It caps off a 14-play, 93-yard touchdown drive, 3rd and goal from the 3. And Nabers extends and twists and pulls the ball in for a touchdown against Martin Emerson. Now, why is this important? Well, because Martin Emerson is a very crafty veteran. He is a high-level corner, goes at 6'2", size, length, physicality. Malik Nabers doesn't let any of that bother him. He snatches that touchdown out of the air. In fact, telling Jones before the play that he wants that ball, he knows he can get it, and Jones says to him, just don't let it get intercepted. I'll give you a chance, but make sure you get it. And like every great wide receiver does in this league, when the ball is in the air, they decide that it's theirs, and nobody else is going to get it. Nabers has done this now a couple of weeks in a row, where he just decides the 50-50 ball is his. We didn't know much about him with 50-50 balls when he was at LSU because he was always getting separation. Well, what we're finding out here in the pros is that he's really good at 50-50 balls too. So that's a 14-7 lead for the Giants. Well, then what happens? 11 seconds left in the second quarter. He catches another touchdown pass. This one is a 5-yard dart, and I mean a fastball thrown by Jones over the middle to make it 21-7. Somehow, Nabers loses safety Rodney McLeod on a switch in a zone. How McLeod it was almost like he was standing still. The way that Nabers cut across to the right side as he got into the middle of the end zone. And just reached up and plucked that thing out of the air. And again, it was a bullet from Jones, who didn't want to waste any time. He saw Nabers was open, so he zipped it to him as quickly as he could. And the defense could not recover, and it was a 21-7 Giants lead at halftime. In fact, they had a 24-0 lead at halftime last year in the finale against Philadelphia, but the Giants don't put up 20-plus points in a half very often. So this was quite a display at the time. All right, so Malik Nabers gets our offensive game ball, and Daniel Jones, an honorable mention. Defensive game ball, this is hard. Giants had 8 sacks, including 17 hits on the quarterback. I mean, they really got after it with the pass rush, and they only allowed 69 rushing yards on 18 carries. So it's really hard to find any one individual. In fact, they became the 4th team since the sack became an official stat in 1982 to have 9 different players record at least a half a sack apiece. All right, we're going to go to 2 guys who made plays in crunch time. Dexter Lawrence, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and a tackle for a loss. It was his stuff on a 4th down and 1 when he was able to prevent Deshaun Watson from gaining a first down that allows the Giants to maintain their 21-15 lead. There was about 4 minutes left in the game at the time, and the Browns were at their own 29-yard line. And so that was incredibly huge because it allowed the Giants another opportunity to then put clinching points on the board. They didn't get those clinching points, and we'll talk about that in our gassers later. On the previous possession, Azeez Ojulari, who had 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and a fumble recovery. Now, this was with about 7.5 minutes to go. And again, it's a 21-15 score. 1st and 10 at the Giants' 44. Watson loses the handle as he was going to try to hand it off to Jerome Ford. And Ojulari, wrestling on the ground, comes up with the fumble recovery, and that preserves the Giants' 6-point lead just as the Browns were gaining momentum trying to complete a comeback. So, in addition to Ojulari's recovery, Lawrence then stopping a 4th down run, and then with 2.5 minutes left in the 4th quarter, Cedric Tillman has a perfect pass go through his fingertips. Tight coverage, but he's got to catch that ball. He drops a 4th down pass with about 2.5 minutes to go. So the Browns failed on each of their 3 final possessions. They had taken momentum of the game. Giants are up 21-15 with just under 8 minutes to go. And on the next 3 possessions, the Browns are short-circuited, and the Giants hold on and win it. Our special teams game ball goes to punter Jamie Gillen. 7 punts for an average of 51.5 yards, a net of 40.4, including 2 inside the 20. But here's where I'm really happy with Gillen. With about 10 minutes to go, Giants are up 21-15, and they're forced to punt from their own 33. Gillen booms a 67-yarder. Now, I know, it goes into the end zone, so it comes back out to the 20. But that's a net of 47. Think about how he flipped the field right there, with the Giants clinging to a 21-15 lead. It was a much-needed punt in a very, very critical situation. All right, we will come back with the offensive, defensive, and special teams gassers right after this quick timeout.
It's the greatest time of year as football is back and it's here to stay. And if you love football, you're going to love Underdog Fantasy. Win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, like passing yards, touchdowns, rushing yards, receiving yards, and many, many more. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head on over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code NYSI, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make a deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code NYSI to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 and over to play. 21 and over in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 and over in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE New York or text HOPE NY 467369.
Paul Dottino back on the Big Blue Breakdown. The game balls and gassers for the Giants win over the Browns 21-15 in week 3, and it's time for the gassers. Now, this is such a huge win for the Giants. They breathed such a sigh of relief in the locker room after the game. But nonetheless, there are some gassers, and sometimes you just hate to give them out, but you have to. Now, the Giants tight ends, I want to just say something. People have been asking, why aren't they more involved in the offense? Well, right now, the way the Giants are matching things up, they're keeping them more in the protection scheme than they are anything else. For example, Daniel Bellinger got 1 catch on 1 target for 17 yards. Theo Johnson, 1 catch for 13 yards on 3 targets. And Johnson actually had one that he should have caught that I'm probably going to rule him with a drop on. They're just not involved much right now in the passing game. That will develop over time and against specific matchups. But right now, they're being held in for a lot of protection purposes. The bad news is here, as the Browns have taken the momentum, there's about 12 minutes left in the game. Giants are up 21-15, 1st and 10 from their own 30-yard line. And Daniel Jones takes off and runs for 12 yards on the first play of the series. Now, that's a big play. It's a first down, and it gets the Giants, into good field position. But instead, it's a hold on Daniel Bellinger. Very, very painful penalty at that time in the game. Giants wound up getting flagged 9 times for 68 yards during the course of the day. This one could have proved very, very bloody. 4 plays later, they had a punt. Gillen gets off the 67-yarder that we just talked about before the break. And so no damage was done. But I'm going to go with the gasser for Bellinger there just because that was a very critical penalty in a very critical time. And the Giants are very fortunate to escape without it causing too much trouble. All right. The defensive gasser. This is also very difficult when you consider how well the defense played overall. It was only on the Browns' second touchdown where they had a few missed tackles, and that's something that Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, had been talking about all week. They've got to clean up the missed tackles. Well, they had a few of them on Ford and on Watson during that second touchdown scoring drive by the Browns that made it 21-15 as they were trying to mount their comeback. So here's what I'm going to do. I hate to do it, but I got to do it because sometimes the offense gets paid too. And Amari Cooper, with about 11 and a half minutes to go, catches a 6-yard touchdown pass off of a simple slant from the left side when he jukes Deonte Banks. Now, Banks had tight coverage most of the day, even though they were able to complete a bunch of passes against him. Very, very tight coverage. Didn't allow much yards after the catch. I'd have to check exactly how much when I go through my detailed tape film review and study. But Banks hesitated momentarily on Cooper's slant, and that allowed him to get into the end zone and then make the touchdown catch from Watson. And again, that made it 21-15 Giants, as the Browns had seized the momentum early in the fourth quarter, and their fans thought that perhaps this was going to be an incredible comeback, but it was not to be, as the Giants eventually wound up shutting them down. All right, now, the special teams gassers, well, they're pretty easy, all right, because I'm going to give out 2 special teams gassers. I have to do it. Occasionally, we will give out co-game balls or co-gassers. We got to give out 2 on special teams because one was so dramatic and the other one was so important. We'll go to the important one first. Kicker Greg Joseph, who started his NFL career in Cleveland, was with Minnesota for a couple of years. Remember, he hit that 61-yard kick to beat the Giants, that field goal just a couple of years ago in a regular season game in Minnesota. Well, he comes in this week. Graham Gano goes on IR. And what does Joseph do? He's in a position to ice the game for the Giants. They're up 21-15 with 3 minutes to go. And they ask Joseph to kick a 48-yard field goal. And he goes wide right. And the Cleveland fans are going bonkers. They're thinking to themselves, holy good God, still only down by 1 score. They think they're in a position to win the game. And again, I understand that. Now, unfortunately for them, they weren't able to complete a 4th down pass about a minute or so later in Giants territory. And the Giants hold on to win. But Joseph cannot miss a field goal in that spot. That's a huge kick that would have clinched the game. So he gets my initial gasser on special teams, and I've got to go with one other. Eric Gray, you know, they like having running backs Gray and Tracy back there as the dual kickoff returners, and I understand that because of their physical tools and their skills. He fumbled the opening kickoff. Now, the Browns turned that into a touchdown, only 11 seconds into the game. In fact, the fastest touchdown the Giants have allowed since the AFL and NFL merged back in 1970, as Watson threw a 24-yard touchdown pass to Amari Cooper immediately following the fumbled kickoff. Went down into the left corner of the end zone on a fade route, despite excellent coverage by Deonte Banks. It also happened to be the quickest, well, I said 11 seconds. The last time the Giants allowed a touchdown on a first play from scrimmage was to running back Napoleon Kaufman of the Oakland Raiders back in 1998 when he dashed 80 yards for a touchdown. Now, the only reason that's not the fastest in terms of clock time is because Kaufman had to go 80 yards. That took 17 seconds off the clock. By the time there was the kickoff, the touchback, Kaufman races 80 yards, 17 seconds came off the clock. In this case, the kickoff, the fumble, the recovery, Watson throws the ball to Cooper for a touchdown. That only took 11 seconds. So we have to go with co-gassers on special teams to Greg Joseph and to Eric Gray. I mean, I know it was so early in the game, and it was almost as if the Browns got the opening kickoff first and scored. I mean, the Giants obviously had plenty of time to recover, and in fact, they did. Consider that they came back with a 81-yard touchdown drive that went 13 plays, and Singletary plunged in from the 1 to tie the game at 7 apiece. So it didn't do much damage to the Giants, but that's not the way you want to start a game. So Joseph for missing a critical kick that could have clinched the game, Gray for fumbling the opening kickoff, which certainly could have been a foreshadowing of negative things to come for the Giants. But it was not to be, as the Giants beat the Browns on the road by the final count of 21-15, and now they prep for Thursday night's game against the Dallas Cowboys at MetLife Stadium. And of course, don't forget, we will be back live Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Big Blue Breakdown on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. We will be taking your video calls, your phone calls, which you can make through the computer, or your chats. Again, Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be here live to talk New York Giants and Dallas Cowboys on the Big Blue Breakdown. I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you next time.